Welcome to the Zayari Wellness Podcast, where we learn about other people's journeys. Regardless of age, race, religion, or status, we're all just human and have one thing in common: the ups and downs of life. Join me in welcoming our special guest, Marcus, as we explore being Black and gay in America.
Hello, everybody. My name is Mark Horsey. I'm actually a friend of a friend who's actually wanting to do this, but I just wanted to at least just tell my life story and just being black and gay. So, a little bit
Here
about
you are.
me. Yeah, I'm here, originally from New Jersey, but now residing in Arlington, Virginia, which is right outside of DC. I've been basically just out since about December of 2014,
Okay.
and just basically been living my life just out and proud as I possibly could.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I wanted to represent a little bit of everybody from different backgrounds, in our podcast, because I want people to understand like the struggles that we all go through, whether we're Black, white, straight, gay, whatever it is that you want to call yourself. Like, I think we have a misconception that like some people struggle more or less. And I think that
Mm,
the point is to show that we all struggle and that we all go through things. And it's important to take care of yourself, to be learn to accept people where they are, and I think that's a big part of healing. So I
hmm.
want to basically ask some questions that I think that maybe some people may not think about, or perhaps like maybe some judgments or misconceptions. That's
Sure.
the whole goal of this, is to break down those barriers and to show people, hey, we're all just human trying to live our lives, trying to be
We're
happy,
all
trying to
human
be healthy.
beings on the inside. Yes.
Absolutely. And so, yeah, so one of the big things that I represent obviously is like mental health. And so,
Mm.
can you talk a little bit about how the intersection of your sexual and ethnic, so being Black and being gay, what challenges does that present? And have you like struggled with any mental health because of it?
I've always had just kind of like a preconceived notion of just like I know who I am. I know that way that I'm presented out into the world is just being black, or being a mixed kid is just always just had like its own struggles of just knowing my own identities growing up. But one of the other things that just kind of compounded that in a way was just me actually coming out as well.
Yeah.
I just do remember like when I came out, one of the first few things that I thought of was just like, oh, it's just like I'm already like a weird kid. I'm already out there. I never
Mm-hmm.
try and just like go by any kind of stereotypes or anything. But
Mm-hmm.
now it's just like at least just gay. That's kind of just like a whole other level that's like now being included
Mm-hmm.
with it.
Mm-hmm.
And just as like for my own mental health, it's just I gotta keep reminding myself it's just like I can still just only be me. I can't
Yeah.
just try and fit into just one thing that somebody's supposed to expect me to be, whether it be
Mm-hmm.
black, whether it be gay, or it's just me. I just can only be myself at the end of the day.
Yeah, absolutely. And I kind of want to highlight that you said like you have your own struggle with being a mixed kid. Can you explain to us a little bit about like what you're mixed with and like what some of those unique struggles were apart from being gay, just even just being
Mm.
mixed by itself?
So my mother was black and my father was actually Puerto Rican, and as
Mhm.
I always jokingly say, somehow Canadian, but that is kind of just like the mix up that I actually have. But it's just I've just always still seen myself as being black because just growing up in a black family,
Mhm.
that is kind of how I just always identified. It's just like I
Mhm.
grew up with my mother, my aunts, and my uncles on her side of the family, and it's just like I've just always just knew that I was just always going to be black. Somebody
Yeah.
would always see me just from the face, being tall, they're just gonna think maybe they're intimidated by me in some kind of way, but it's just like I just am just me. I can't change that. I can't
Mhm.
do anything about it. But it's just like
Mhm.
the best thing that I've always tried to do is just make sure that I just at least make people comfortable being around me. That it's
Yeah.
just like you can just because you see me as one way, it's just not I'm not gonna be like everybody else.
Yeah, absolutely. And so let's talk about Blacks and Hispanics and being gay, right? So
Hmm.
like, I think one of the big things, especially like in the Black and the Hispanic culture, is like, oh no. not over here. I don't think so. So can
Very much
you
that,
tell me a
yes.
little bit about your experience with that and like how that impacted you, even accepting yourself and like maybe and being gay?
Mhm. So me with my parents, well, mostly my mother and my grandmother, they were all raised in the church.
Mhm.
So it was very religious in my household.
Mhm.
And it's just like they were they were very religious, but they were also very liberal and just very always accepting of others and very
Yeah.
tolerant of it. And it's just like I just remember like my one of my older cousins, they were actually coming out as gay, and
Mhm.
they were the first person that actually did it in like our own little sibling group. But they always still accepted them. My grandmother did, my mom did, of course, but it was just like they were the oldest.
Mhm.
But even for me, I was still always kind of just like, okay, they're out. I still love them, but it was still kind of even some kind of, I don't want to say like misconception, but it was still just always like some kind of something always felt like they held back
Yeah.
against them.
Mhm.
But even now, they're actually trans, and it's just like
Mhm.
they're still kind of just that whole thing of just like, yeah, they still just have this old school mentality
Mhm.
that she was actually still just he.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
it's just like even me, I was always the very first one that was still accepting it. But I think it's like even my other cousins, they all still just called her by her, but even still just leaving the dead name away. And it's just like because it's out of respect and it's just who she is now.
Mhm.
But even then, just going back to me, it's just I kind of just always thought of it as just like maybe I wouldn't be accepted, maybe something that they wouldn't see in me that's just probably changed. But in another sense, they also thought it's like there was already another family member that's gay, and they already
Yeah.
accepted them.
Yeah.
So
So your
it was.
family was a little bit more accepting of you
Hmm.
when you came out. Okay. And what about like the fear of like maybe friend groups or like in general, like in your culture? How did that impact?
See again, what are the weird kids? It's the cold good thing. It's just like we're all weird, so they all accept it. So,
Yeah. Yeah,
but
absolutely. I think we all have our
but
things that make us weird.
yeah, but it's just like when I even told like my best friend, I was
Hmm.
telling him it's just like I'm gay and I'm seeing this guy. He's just the first thing that he even said is just like, "You're dating somebody?" So it's like it was funny to me. So it's just like he kind of already broke the ice that way. So it's just like I already knew they were gonna accept me for who I was because it's just like they already knew. We were all like our own little eclectic group of friends, but they just
Yeah.
still loved me just for me being me.
What about people that weren't your friends? Like, what is the vibe that you got from people that weren't your friends growing up, like in coming out? And it seems like you came out a little bit when you were older than, publicly.
Yeah, so it was for me, I actually going through high school, going through college, it was not a tumultuous time for me, but it was just a lot of just denying and suppressing
Okay.
who I actually was. And it's just like I didn't actually come out until I was 23.
Yeah.
So it's been almost 10 years, next year actually, that it's like when
Hmm.
I actually started going out and starting dating and actually seeing other men. But it's just like I don't think there was any a point when anything really changed with anybody I knew because
Mm.
it's just like I was always still going to be who I was. They already knew I was already outspoken and they already knew I had a point of view on anything. So it's
Hmm.
just like at this point, it's just a whole nother thing that's just added to my personality and my wackiness. So
Yeah.
it
It
was the
almost
last
seems
thing that
like,
anybody ever thought of, really, just as me just being gay, and like that's the least of their problems.
yeah, absolutely. It seems like your story has been a little bit more of like acceptance from the people that are close to you and loving you. So can you tell the audience, for those that are struggling perhaps with like their identity or not feeling acceptance, like the importance of community and the importance of having people that are accepting of who you are?
One thing that I've always stuck to is just you can only be yourself. Nobody can ever change that. Coming out is kind of just a tough thing to do, and I totally understand it. but it's a freeing moment more than anything because you can actually just feel like a weight is literally lifted off your shoulders and you don't have to you don't have to have that behind you on anything. So just you can do it in your own time, but coming out once it's done, it really just becomes a little bit easier day in and day out. And I
Yeah.
understand that some people don't actually have those opportunities and they still have that fear in them. But if anything, at least from my story and just at least from my personality, just being out and just still being you, that's the best weapon that you can have against anybody.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of the time, like when you don't, even if you weren't gay and you don't accept who you are, that creates so many barriers to healing,
Yeah,
in your own journey. And it creates a lot of like self hatred, or even like some people wonder, I'm doing all these things, and I'm not happy. And I think a lot of that comes with like not accepting yourself, not accepting
exactly.
who you are, where you are. For us, the nerdy ones, the weird ones, like, hey, like that comes with the package.
Yeah.
And I know that you mentioned like growing up in a religious household. So, what role, if any, does spirituality play into your life and being a gay man?
See, funny enough, it's just I was actually growing up religious and I actually went to Catholic school for about
Hmm.
3 years of my life. But going through those processes and just learning more about religion has actually just made me think more of compassion for others because that was really
Mm.
the crux of everything that was taught in
Yeah.
Christianity, in Buddhism, and Muslim, and Judaism, anything. Like all of it is
Hmm.
still just about loving each other and just
Hmm.
trying to do right by each other. All the other things are just like you're gay, you're gonna go to hell, and all this. But it's just like
Hmm.
we're all born of sin.
Hmm.
Nothing really makes a difference if we're all gonna be trying to save each other. But one
Absolutely.
sin is not different than the other. But
And I love that you mentioned that, because I too come from a very religious home, growing up, and I've heard, about, if you're doing this, you're going to hell. If you're doing this, you're going to hell, and it's almost like, dang, if I blink wrong, I'm going to hell, like
exactly.
it's like, oh my gosh, and it's a little bit terrifying to hear, especially, but my heart goes out more towards people who are gay, or who identify as different than being straight or heterosexual, because there is a big target sometimes, it seems like, on y'all's back, because being gay or not being identifying as heterosexual. And I love how you said all sin is the same. Like, we're born into sin, and I think sometimes people categorize whether one sin is more important than another. And I love that you said that, because it doesn't mean that you either have to be straight and not have faith, right? And if you
Exactly,
you don't
because
align to all these things, you can't have faith, right?
yes, and like one of the biggest takeaways that I've always taken is love thy neighbor.
Hmm.
That's one thing that I've always stuck to. Love thy neighbor, respect others as you want to be respected, and treat
Absolutely.
others like you want to be treated. It's just there's there's so many teachings that you can come from it, but really all of it comes down to just having goodwill and just trying to do best for others and love
Right.
each other more than anything. It's not just one way that you got to do this, one thing that you got to do this, because there's also a lot of contradictions in there, but we won't go into that. But but it's just my thing is just I've always taken away that you just need to love each other just like God and Jesus have loved us because that's
Hmm.
what we always have known. He so
Yeah, absolutely. So, and loving yourself plays a big part, and like judgment plays a big part in how people view themselves, how
mm,
people accept themselves and love themselves. So, with that being said, what are some misconceptions about being a minority and being gay that you feel like you would like the world to know?
as I've kind of already said earlier, it's just I don't fit into one single box. I can't
Hmm.
fit into one because it's like I'm black, I'm gay, I'm weird, I'm nerdy, I'm funny, I'm this, I'm that. Nobody can ever say I'm just black and or gay. I can't
Hmm.
put myself into just that one box or
Well,
one
what
or
does
two
it mean to be
boxes.
black? And what does it mean to be gay?
it means that, I guess, in a way, it's somewhat of a different experience of just growing up and just having a sense of identity, because there
Mhm.
is still just a history behind my blackness. Like my family, they were all coming from the South, and well, but pretty much just all like my mother's side, they were all coming from the South, and then they moved to the North. But there's some history behind just like that. My past grandparents and even past them, the great grandparents, ancestors, and all that. But there's this a makeup that is just somewhat different to
Mhm.
others, and just how black people in America experience the world.
Mhm.
So there is that sense of history to it, but it's just still not just kind of never forgetting where my family has come from. Like
Absolutely. How has that
like
shaped
even
your experiences?
um there have been some negative ones more than anything, but
Mhm.
usually all I ever try and think of is the positive. And one of the biggest things for me is me going to an HBCU, or historically black college university.
Okay.
So that is for my 4 years that I was there, I kind of felt like I was having another community where I could actually be with smart, intellectual, more funny than me kind of individuals. But they all were coming from somewhat of the same experience that I had,
So,
even
or are
still
you
living
saying that
differently.
like you've had the perception, or maybe some people are like, oh, blackness can't mean that you're smart. Blackness can't mean that you're educated. So, can you highlight a little bit more on that?
So, like I said, even with my college experience, this is kind of where my mind even expanded outside of just where I was in my
Hmm.
little neighborhood in New Jersey.
Yeah.
So, where a lot of people did come from where I was, and there was like the few people that were like in the Philadelphia area that went to my school, I was able to witness different kinds of people from Arizona, California, Seattle, Vegas, even like few from Texas. Some people even that were local to there from Virginia, Florida. I I met so many different people than what I even knew as just myself of even being black. There were
Hmm.
people that were into the same interests as me, is just like in rap, hip hop, all that. But some were musicians, some were writers, some were poets, some played instruments, some just
Hmm.
were great at their own little skills. But even then, they were still even just like some nerdy kids like me.
Yeah.
It's just like it was a whole other way of just seeing black people being represented, or just seeing other black people that had different interests than mine, that it was just very just cool to see. And it's
Absolutely.
just like it took my mind, it really just took my mind, it really just took my mind in a whole other place, and just knowing like me is just me being black in my own way is not the only
Mhm.
way that everybody else is. It made me
Yes.
realize it's like there's so many other things that black people can actually do and have different interests. One even wanted to snowboard. And
Right?
I never even thought that
You're
was
like,
a thing.
what? Black people like
I
cold?
was like,
Excuse me?
you know what? Now I probably want to try it. But it just opened my mind so much. It's just like we're just not one way.
Yeah.
We have interest more than anything, like just like everybody else.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I love, how you talk about expanding your horizons, right? Because
Yeah.
I'm Hispanic too. And coming here to the US, people wouldn't know that my first language is Spanish, right?
Hmm.
But, getting made fun of in school made me fix my accent real quick, right? And in part, like you kind of lose a part of your culture, because of you wanting to fit in or even like wanting to be accepted. But just like so many people, oh, well, if you don't speak Spanish, you're not Latin, right? Like,
Hmm.
that's not true. Like, being black doesn't mean that I have to like all these things or be a certain way.
Right.
I don't know if you've ever experienced this, but like, oh, you speak like a white person.
Oh, I have.
What does that
I
mean?
have. That what is this? Is that I speak proper English?
Right. Like, what does that mean? Like,
I use my
why
periods and know
is
my punctuations. It's like, what does this
exactly.
mean?
Exactly. Like, why is just being smart associated, or just being pronouncing your words a certain way associated with a specific culture or group of people? Like, what does that mean?
I would never know, and I still don't understand it to this day. But it's just me just knowing how my mother just wanted me to actually seem intelligent, and just knowing words and just knowing knowledgeable things. I can't explain it more than that. She
Absolutely.
wanted better
Like,
for
why
me.
is there a stigma associated with education and a race?
I
And
don't
what's
know.
interesting is that, looking at statistics nowadays, like the black woman is the most educated person in the US,
They are.
right?
And
But
this is why I always praise black women, because it's just like not just to disparage any other kind of race or creed, but for me, growing up with a black mother and with black women in my life, and seeing the disparities that they've always had and the struggles
yeah.
that they've always had to deal with, more than me, even being, well, I'll say it as a light-skinned black man,
Hmm.
they have endured more than us, more in
Absolutely.
history, more than anybody, any other race or sexuality. They have
Hmm.
endured a lot throughout history, and it's just like I always praise my black women in my life, and I
Hmm.
always praise any kind of women in my life, because even as being a man, even as being gay, we're still just seen as a man more than anything.
Hmm.
So I always want to praise women because we wouldn't be here without them.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, everybody here came out of a hoo-ha, right? Like,
Exactly.
everybody.
Yeah.
I mean, I may be biased because I'm a woman, but I'm just saying.
Hey, it's the truth though.
And okay, so I kind of want to jump a little bit into that. Like, a lot of people, like, if you're in a gay couple, right? They're like, "Oh, who's the
Mhm.
woman?" Have you ever gotten told that?
Um,
Have you ever gotten like,
my boyfriend, he has actually had this conversation with a friend of his, and it's just like, no, neither of us have a hoo-ha. So why would it matter for either of us who is the woman?
yeah,
It's just like,
absolutely. And so, but why is that a misconception? Like, what? Okay, so let's explain. I think let's talk about masculinity and being gay.
whew, that is something
Can you be
that is
masculine
always
and
a
be
hot
gay?
that is always a hot topic for me, because it's just like, just again, just being that weird nerdy kid. It's just like, who cares who you are as a person, if you're femme or masculine. I understand that culturally there could definitely be some ways that a lot of even gay men just have to stick to a narrative of just being this masculine hard person, but it's just like, why does that have to hinder who you are? If
Hmm.
you're gay and you're out, or even if you're gay and you're still closeted, just be yourself. At the
Right.
end of the day, why does it have to be a whole stigma of just wanting to really conform to a societal viewpoint of just what a man is supposed to be?
Right.
If anything, my upbringing has always been a man is supposed to provide for him, his family, and his partner
Yeah.
more than anything. It doesn't even if the woman is still doing it, you're still just supposed to provide for each other. You're supposed to
Exactly.
provide for your family. There's not supposed to be one way that somebody has to basically do something in life.
Hmm.
You just still have
Absolutely.
to be yourself more than anything.
Yeah, and I can't speak for men, obviously. I can't speak what it's
Mm.
like to be masculine or manhood, but you hear that a lot. It's just like, oh, toxic masculinity, or what does it look like to be masculine, or who's the female in the gay relationships? And it's like, hold on, wait a minute. Like, I mean, if being female means having more qualities that are more, I guess, submissive or kind or soft, I'm like, I don't even fill that category. I guess I'm not very feminine.
But even then, it's just like it's always just seems like it's a negative connotation to it, and it's just like, why?
Hmm.
We all, like we've already said, we come from a woman. We
Hmm.
came into this world from a woman.
Yeah.
Why does it have to be as such a put down for anything in life?
Right.
I don't get it, and I will never understand it.
So
Silly.
I think it's so interesting, like all the cliches and culture, and I think a lot of healing, right? Going back to like healing journeys, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you want to heal, sometimes you have to break cultural norms, cultural barriers, what
Mm-hmm.
something should be. Because when you are living in a should, you are not living in your authenticity and in your truth,
Exactly.
right? And
Yes.
it keeps you suppressed, it keeps you depressed, right? It keeps you locked in a box. And I'm not saying that there shouldn't be any cultural norms. I'm not saying there shouldn't be any
Mm-hmm.
standards. But what I am saying is when it's derogatory, when it puts someone, when you perceive someone else as less than because of those expectations or because of those shoulds, then we run into the problem.
Mm-hmm. Totally agree on that one. And it's just, I guess my perception of things is just why it doesn't anything just meld together? We can always just be ourselves, but we can all come together and experience something great together.
Absolutely.
And it's
I
just like,
think one of my most, go ahead, I'm sorry.
I was just even gonna say, it's just like even with a lot of my friends groups, it's just coming up in college, it's just like, yes, we were all black, but even then, I tried to intermingle just like every type of friend that I kind of had because I just wanted it to be like somewhat of a family resemblance. All
Hmm.
of us are just being together, just having fun, trying to learn from each other. And it's just even with my group of friends, even with Jose,
Hmm.
we all had like our own different types of friends in the group, but it's just like it's all just coming together and just experiencing life together. We're not even
Absolutely.
caring even more of just one is black, one's Latino, one's Asian, one's just mute or something. It's an example, but it's like anything like any kind of person is welcome around us, and we can all experience just life together with our differences, regardless of it. It's
Absolutely.
just
Well,
we can all
wait,
just
wait a
have
minute.
fun more than anything.
Are you saying that we can have a difference of opinion and still respect each other
Yes,
and like each other? Are
yes,
you sure?
yes. Oh, of course.
What do you
You may hate
mean?
me by the end of the day, but we're still gonna be hanging out later. So
Like, thank you. I think, man, that is a big thing in America today is that if you disagree with me, you hate me,
it's
and we
fine.
cannot be in the same space.
No, it's to me, it has just always been. There's always been. We're always gonna have disagreements. We're always gonna have hot topics that we will never see eye to eye on. But
Hmm.
at the end of the day, if we still respect each other, we still love each other, we're gonna still hang out. We're still gonna talk it out. We're gonna get past something that is so that's really not it's really trivial at the end of the day because it's not really affecting our lives as more as what we go through day to day.
Absolutely.
We can
Absolutely.
understand like we don't see we're not going to come to an agreement on anything or one specific topic, but that should never that should never ruin a relationship because of
Absolutely.
that.
I
If it is
and
actually
people
doing
wonder.
harm, that's it.
Absolute look here, and then people wonder why relationships don't last that long anymore. One, yes, it had to do with like women perhaps had to lean on men or whatever to be able to
Hmm.
survive back in the day, right? I think we are in a very fun social experiment in our era where for the first time, like women do get to stand out and make their own choices and not really need a man, I guess.
Hmm.
But I think it also is exposing how limited we have learned to love other people,
Hmm.
because now that we're both free to do whatever we want, we pick and choose. We live in a microwave generation and we don't
Hmm.
know how to agree to disagree. We don't know how to love
Yes.
someone for their flaws. We don't
Yes.
know how to have a differencing in opinion at the end of the night, like say, you know what, I still love you. You piss me
Hmm.
off, you get on my last nerves, but I still love you. And
Hmm.
I think, especially in America, because we are in a big cultural blending society, right?
Hmm.
We see it a lot because so many differences of opinion, so many different backgrounds. People from all over the world live in the US, which means that they may or may not feel accepted by us, not just being black, right? Like, what does it mean to be a
Hmm.
black man in America? Okay.
What does
Like,
it even mean to be an immigrant that's coming from a totally different culture than ours?
exactly, exactly. And I think that's my point is to show that, yes, we all go through things. in America. Like, yes, I think that the Black woman, like you said, has been through a lot historically as well. But also that immigrant mom that's a Mexican who came over here without papers because life is so bad in her country, right?
Mm-hmm.
That they know the discrimination they're going to experience here in the US and still choose to do that.
Exactly.
That's tough choice to make. That is so difficult. Then I think that we have so much division. You know, I can you share with the audience about a form of discrimination that you've experienced in your life for being Black or for being gay?
So, weirdly enough, I've kind of always avoided a lot of confrontation in my life.
Hmm.
I'll definitely say I've been very lucky to actually not have anything that has been very harmful to me in terms of just my blackness and my queerness.
Hmm.
But one thing that I would definitely say is that I've actually had like a conversation with a friend of mine who is black. He's a little older than me, but
Hmm.
years ago we had like a conversation of just being black in America, and it's just like we kind of agreed that we've always had like this kind of feeling or just thinking in the back of our heads. It's just if I say something one way and somebody doesn't agree with it, are they saying that they disagree with me because I'm black? Are they disagreeing
Hmm.
with me because I'm gay?
Hmm.
Are they just disagreeing because they just disagree with my point of view?
Hmm.
So that's always been one thing that I've kind of always had like an internal struggle with. It's just
Hmm.
if I come off a certain way, excuse me, are they gonna are they just gonna disapprove of what I'm saying or just how I'm expressing it because I'm black or because
Hmm.
I'm gay?
Being
It
dismissed.
exactly. And it's
Hmm.
just in the workforce that we were in, it was very white, older male dominated, but it was just kind of just feeling as though we weren't still up to the level of where they were in that.
Okay.
But it could
And I
also
think
just be, you know,
go ahead, go ahead.
no, I was just gonna say on the flip side of it too, you could also think it's just like they've been there for decades. They've
Hmm.
seen everything. They've basically gone through the conception of it to basically the end product. And it's just like that could possibly also just be maybe on us just being ageist in a
The
way.
power of perception.
Yeah.
It is so powerful, and I love that you said that because I think that one of the big things regarding discrimination is how much of it is my thinking, right? How much of
Mm,
it is me perceiving that someone is discriminating against me? I'm making an assumption that it's
yep.
because I am X, Y, and Z, right? And because I could say that as a woman, I'm not taken very seriously either in the business
Yeah.
world,
There you
right?
go.
I
Yes.
go to like the mechanic and they tell me all these 20 things are wrong with my car when I know I'm like, no, it's this because I have a family member that looked at it, you
Yes.
know? And so, but it could be like, oh, it's because I'm a woman or because I am Hispanic or Latina. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Hmm.
I can easily say that. And so it's a very big thing. And I think that it's good to, I guess, share with the audience as well how much of our discrimination is perceived or assumed.
I think a lot of it is really internal. It's like I even said, it's like my own even internal struggle of just thinking if it's one way or another. A lot of it is very internal, but in some instances, it could be explicit. I'm not going
Hmm.
to discredit that either,
I
but
agree.
majority of the time, I think it is a lot of our own internal perceptions of just how we're being viewed outside of ourselves.
Hmm.
More than anything, more than probably say about 90, 95%, because it's just we already know how we've come up, we know what we've experienced, we've known what is around us in our environment, we've known what's outside of it, even outside of America, in the world. A lot of different ideas can come into play when you only know yourself and where you've been through.
Yes, absolutely. And I'm a trauma specialized therapist, and I kind of want to
Mm,
highlight this because it goes with what we're talking about. When someone experiences trauma, right? they are automatically living their life in defense mode, right?
Mm-hmm.
But when you have a whole generation of people who have experienced trauma, which they have here in
Yeah.
America. Look at our history, and not
Mm-hmm.
just blacks, but Latinos were in that boat as well.
Oh
you
yeah.
know,
Yeah.
we experience these struggles together. So when you look at I guess the stereotype of the angry black woman, well, if there's a
Mm-hmm.
stereotype of somebody automatically being defensive and mad, what does that tell you about the generations, about what they went through and trauma?
Mm-hmm.
You
They've
know,
gone through a lot. Yeah.
Exactly. And so when you're living your life on the defense, I am starting to shift my focus now on people. I'm like, the more defensive someone is, the more quote unquote aggressive, or the more shut down or emotionally unavailable, right? The black man, emotionally unavailable, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's what they say a lot. That shows me something about the history of that gender or that race, right? And it takes a
Right.
lot of intention for us to get out and heal and get out of that mentality of, you know what, everybody is against me. Some of that is
Mm-hmm.
internal, some of that is perception, because we have gotten used to living that way in previous generations where it was very imminent, where discrimination was very overt and not covert, right?
Yeah.
Very evident.
I'll even say for myself, it's just I don't know if it's either just because it's being a manly thing or just being a black thing, but even for me, it's just like I've never really been one to show my emotions. I've always said that I
Mhm.
have my emotions I show my emotions on my sleeve, but a lot of times it is just as aggression. It's not just coming off as just me being like, oh, sob, woe is me, I'm crying in a corner, but it's just the thing is this showing any kind of sadness was just
Mhm.
never one thing that was supposed to be shown. It's just
Mhm.
like I was never told, yes, you can cry about things, but it's just like I guess just culturally, it was just you have to at least keep your emotions down. Don't express your emotions that much because it's just gonna come off as soft. If you cry
Mhm.
about anything, you're just gonna be showing yourself. You're gonna be showing yourself as one thing, but it is just growing now and becoming an adult and just understanding just how a lot of people just need mental health and just in kind of ways like that. I've just shown more of my emotions more than anything. I just like
Yes.
I don't cry on command still, but I can understand
There's a
that.
need for
No,
it.
yes, of course. At certain times, yes, but it's just at least being more freeing of at least still showing who you are and just showing the emotional side of you because it's
Yes.
fine. It's
But
okay.
think about the history of that, though. Think about why
Mm.
black men or black households or Hispanic households stop crying, stop crying, don't show
Yeah.
emotion. Well, when you're owned by other people who beat you for showing emotion, or who do certain things to you for showing
Mm-hmm.
emotion, you have to survive, and you shut it down to survive. And I think that
Yeah.
we teach that to our children, and it comes from a place that was very broken, right?
Mm-hmm.
And now there's a shift. Like, we have to learn, okay, there is a time for me to be vulnerable, right? Like, I am safe with the people that I'm around, if you are,
Mm-hmm.
right? But I think
Right.
that's a big indication to show, like, when you have a whole group of people, like I said, who have that same perception, right? It shows you something.
Yeah.
It's I think it's a conversation that, like, we don't necessarily have very often. And so excuse me. Um what is your thought with not showing emotion, or even showing emotion? Because when people think gay, they think emotional, right?
See, weirdly enough, with just at least being gay, I think in my mind that's always just been a way to still just at least express your emotion more. It is kind of like a weird thing with it because it's like even I'm still telling my truth. I don't see emotions as just being, oh, you're just so emotional because you're gay. But it's just like, no, I'm still just being emotional because I'm being emotional about a topic that has come up for me. I don't think
Exactly.
it can't just be just because I'm gay. It's just like, if anything, because I'm gay, I'm letting go of that
Mhm.
emotion. I'm letting go of just knowing, yeah, I've held something in for so long. I've held this secret that's just been bubbling up inside of me. And it's just like now I can at least express that in some kind of
Mhm.
way, even if it is just being sad, but it's also just being happy. It's just being truthful. It's just knowing who I am finally and accepting it.
Mhm.
I think that's kind of like the more emotional aspect that I can at least think of when it
Mhm.
is just being tied to being gay, because I know just a lot of television just always sees the gay man as just being a struggle and just always just knowing even the history of that in the AIDS pandemic. We're just already knowing that a lot of people have been lost because of something, but it's just you still have to at least try and persevere and just know that there was a struggle even there at one point.
Mhm.
But you
Can
kind
you
of want to.
elaborate a little bit on that?
So I felt like I was kind of rambling a bit, but it's just the history just behind the AIDS pandemic. A
Mhm.
lot of people were lost, and it's just knowing that I've never personally lost anybody to that, but just
Mhm.
still just knowing the history of that era, you can kind of empathize with people and just knowing that they lost dear friends, dear people that they loved, and just knowing that it can just be heartbreaking just to just express that. And it's just a tough thing to even just fathom, because even now, like we've kind of went through something similar to that through the COVID pandemic.
Absolutely.
People were dying just of something that nobody knew of, that was
Right.
invisible to the eye. And just losing people because of that, and we're all just being at home
Mhm.
and not knowing what to do while somebody is in the hospital struggling
Right.
to just live their to just stay alive for something like that. That's probably the closest thing we can ever come to that.
Yeah,
But
I
even
I, I
just as
agree.
but just even to being as a gay man, it's just like I see all these stories, and then just the death mark kept going up early on. I'm just like, I kind of feel bad. I feel sad in a way, because it's just like one of my boyfriend's best friends, she lost both of her parents to COVID.
Wow.
And it was just, I know it could have been an emotional thing for her, because it's just like she lost two of the closest people to her in her life
Yeah,
to that. And it's just, you feel for her more than anything. But it's just like
absolutely.
that's that internal sadness that's probably more of a relatable thing, more than just being gay or just being a woman. It's just losing somebody that you care for,
Yeah,
and you just having that empathy and sympathy of just understanding where they are, where they feel, and just knowing that somebody could just be lost at that point. And it's just
absolutely.
upsetting, and you feel for them more than anything.
Yeah, at the end of the day, and that's the message, right? Like we all have experienced loss. We all struggle with our identity. It doesn't matter if you're gay or straight or hetero or whatever you identify as. We all struggle with identity. We all struggle
Hmm.
with, experiencing life. We all struggle with some form of discrimination or bias, right? Um, and I think that's the message that we want to use this platform for, is to say, at the
Mm.
end of the day, we are all bleed red. We're all
Exactly.
human. And the one thing that does connect us is life experiences, right? At the end of the day, whether you're black, whether you're white, whether you're Asian, whether you're gay, straight, hetero, trans, whatever you want to identify as, like, we are all human. And I think we need to take down those barriers, even in, like you said, like religion and being gay. Oh my gosh, don't know, that's not a thing, right?
Yeah.
You can't be religious and gay, because if you're gay you can't be religious, you're not accepted, right? That's not necessarily true.
Yeah.
And we need to
And
do a
one
better job at taking down those barriers.
Yeah, and one of the things that I've always just kind of spearheaded for the past maybe 10 years is that it's the human race. That's what we're in the business for. We're not talking about the black race, the Hispanic race, white, Asian race. It's the human race. We're all human
Absolutely.
beings at the end of the day. We're here on this planet together as humans. We need to take
Absolutely.
care of us as humans.
Yes, absolutely. I agree. And so, I think my last question would be like, looking back, what is something that you wish someone would have told you, or what is something that you want to tell the audience if they can take anything from our session today?
Phew, it's coming. This is something that I've kind of even contemplated myself. It's just, I don't, there's so many things that I could possibly say, but the one thing that possibly just comes to mind is just come out sooner.
Hmm.
If I may have actually, if I come out sooner, or just at least have like some kind of mentor that you can go to that could basically help you come out sometime sooner. Because I didn't have a person in my life that really guided me in some kind of way, or just like I had some kind of way to just know what the gay experience would be like. I knew of people that were in my life that were gay, but I never actually had somebody that I could directly go to. It's just like, hey, can I have some advice on this? Can I have some advice on that? What do you think of this? Is just, even if it's as just not even like as a non-gay person, even if that's as an ally, I never really had somebody that really was in my life to really guide me. But there was my mom's friend, basically his best friend. He's literally my godmother, which I found out, or my godfather that I found out later in life. But he actually passed away like years ago,
Mm.
and he was possibly the closest person that I could probably go to for that.
Yeah.
But he came out even like late in life as well, even after a marriage and kids. But he was possibly the closest one, but I never even got a chance to because I didn't even come out myself until maybe
Wow.
a year or two later after he passed.
Yeah.
So my best advice would just be go to somebody that you wholeheartedly trust and just at
Hmm.
least go to them for any kind of advice because they would probably be the best person that would actually help you go through your own experience, whether it be gay or straight, just helping you guide your way in life.
Absolutely. There is power in connection and there is
Hmm.
healing in connection. And I agree with you wholeheartedly. Like, I can look back and say, I wish someone would have, guided me through these these crazy things that happen in life. And I think that's
Mm.
another reason why I'm like creating this platform is for others to share their knowledge, share their journey, share
And
their wisdom.
appreciate the service that you do for us on this.
Absolutely. Well, Mark, I really appreciate you taking the time out to be on this platform, share some of your story, break some of those barriers that we have, and just thank you for being here.
And thank you for at least having me and appreciate the time to just actually
Absolutely.
have me tell my story.
Absolutely.